With each step into this treacherous forest, a sense of unease crept up our spines as the gnarled, lifeless trees stand like silent sentinels of impending doom. You know, I'm titling this video Working in the Death Zone because I had a job yesterday that was actually extremely dangerous. The potential for anything happening, like this breaking and falling on me, was very real. There was a lot of situations out in this area in the forest that could have gotten me killed. So it's very, very important that you remain aware and very observant to everything that's around you. Don't just go through your job oblivious to what might happen. See it ahead of time. You know, in the recent storms that we had, let me back up. We got 24 inches of snow in 12 hours. That was a couple of months ago, but it left the trees devastated. They were just extreme breakage everywhere. Trees fell down, tops broke, and when you look through the forest, everywhere you look, there's dead tops. And all these dead tops are ready to fall and break and come down on you. So this whole trail that I'm working here is a potential death zone. Now I'm walking out here again. This is the day after I did this job. And I'm looking at all the stuff that's down. And we did so much clearing. We had to cut out so many branches, so many trees, so many things that were broken and fallen down. But we kept running into. Everywhere I looked in the woods, I felt like there was a ticking time bomb. Something was going to give. Something was going to break. If the winds were up, I certainly would not have been out here. But the devastation from all the storms that we had was very evident. Everywhere we looked, things were hanging up in the trees. Things were ready to fall. Death all around us. You know, on top of all of that, the forest is full of dead tan oaks. These monster trees that are all on the verge of breaking and falling down. And they do. They fall down when you least suspect it. Just being out here is hazardous. So it's important to pay attention, but also to listen. Listen for any noises, listen for any cracks, listen for anything that is going to make you jump. The state of the forest right now in my area is pretty horrific. There are so many species of tree that are in trouble. The tan oak, big problem tree. They're dying by the millions. Phytophthora ramorum, also referred to as sudden oak death. Now we've got a serious problem with the giant Douglas fir trees. And these monsters are succumbing to an insect attack as well as a trunk canker disease. And they're also dying, not as rapidly or in the numbers as the tan oaks, but our forest is in serious trouble. What absolutely blows my mind is the sheer power that it took to snap some of these trees. Everywhere I looked, the tops were broken, things were hanging down, things were ready to fall everywhere I look. And I didn't mention the angle of the hillside. It was a very steep trail that went down over quite a ways, and some areas the hillside was probably 65, 75 degrees. It was almost straight down in some bends. Most of the time it was 45, 50 degrees. With a very narrow trail. The trail was decimated. There's a big fir that went down. Gosh, look at that. At any moment, that's a lot bigger than it looks. Things like that, they can just snap, and you can, if you're underneath them or anywhere as near. Look at the power, the unbelievable breakage. Here's a spot where we had to clear this down tree, and you can see the angle of the hillside by the angle of the tree. It's really steep. So when you've got all that pressure on a piece of wood, it's very, very hard not to get your saw stuck. And unfortunately, Jorge did get his saw stuck here. Oh, it happens to the best of us. It really does. You know, we were able to get it out of there. We had to mess around with it for a little bit, but there you can see we cleared a spot and had to, but everything was moving. Everything was falling down. In this area, there was a hillside of sandstone rocks, very, very large rocks. And these trees fell on the rocks, and you could see where everything had moved. So it took us a little while to figure it out. We had to clear all the branches, and we looked up, and the reality of the extreme hazard of where we were at became more clear. Not to mention all the giant dead trees towering over our heads. And when you see one that snapped off in half, you recognize that these things are all weak. There's some of those boulders I was talking about. Oh, man, the tree hit this rock face hard, really hard. Some big trees hit so we could tell everything was dislocated. Look at this. This absolutely blows my mind. Completely snapped through, hanging up in another tree. There's that boulder that I was talking about. It was about half the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, just sitting up there on a couple little points. And you can see we were working underneath it. Oh, the power, just to snap these big trees like toothpicks. The winds were horrific. Everything was absolutely unbelievable weather conditions, not to mention the weight of all that snow that none of these trees were used to. Strange times. I think with all the weather patterns changing, we can expect so much more of this kind of thing.